in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to draw a floral pattern, and I'm also going to be inking it and then using watercolors to paint it. You can feel free to use any watercolors that you do have and change the colors if you'd like to paint along. But I'm going to be using the Koi watercolor set, the 48-piece set, for this painting or this illustration. So I'm starting off with a pencil just to get the basic sketch down so that we can use that as a guide. Now you can use a kneaded eraser or you could use a regular eraser, it's fine, either one. So I'm going to start off by just drawing in the flowers. Now I'm not really keeping it perfect or trying to make it look perfect. I'm just creating a little bit of a petal flower. I'm not using any reference. This I'm drawing completely from imagination. And when you're drawing, feel free to change things to how you'd like them to be. If you're not happy with something, then just go in and change it. It's really all that you need to do. You don't have to stick with something if it's not working for you, or if you're not happy with it. Change it to what you think will work for you and what you want to basically portray on paper. So if there's something that's looking a bit off or not looking the exact way you want, then just improvise and change it about until you are happy with the final result. I'm going to draw in, I think I'm going to draw in 3 flowers, I think. So I'm going to draw another one in here. This is a 0.05. Now you could use something a little thicker if you want. It depends on how thick you want the outline to be. Now I'm going to keep the outline quite thin, and I don't want it to really like overpower the drawing. So I'm going to start off with this leaf here. Now you'll notice as I'm inking, I'm basically changing up the shape of the leaf. That's really not a problem. We just want to create a illustration, and we're not too worried about the angle of the leaf or anything like that. And then I'm going to just create another one over here. So I'm not adding too much of detail, but just enough so you can see the image well. You can see I've got everything following as it should follow, so everything looks cohesive and it makes sense. Now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to erase all the pencil lines from my illustration. Okay, so there is the illustration that I have created. This is the illustration of the flowers. Now we're going to go ahead and add some color. Now this is one of my favorite parts of the drawing process. I'm going to be mixing my colors over here. Now I'm thinking pink flowers, and I want to just add, sorry, I left out the little lines. That makes a big difference, the lines to it. It looks more complete. Okay, so you can see I'm just doing very simple drawing. I'm not really taking a lot of effort in thinking about it. Now I'm going to go in with my round brush and I'm going to start mixing colors. So I'm getting some pink for this illustration. Now remember, when you are mixing your colors, you're going to be needing a lot of the color, especially depending on the size of your flowers. So try to mix a good amount of color. And then also just test out if your water is not too much on the brush, then just dab off the excess on a paper towel. Excuse that, that is just messages on my phone. So I'm just going in and I'm trying to keep within the lines. Try to be very, very delicate with your application. Now you could use a smaller brush if you want, but I prefer a larger brush, although the edges are much easier to get in with a smaller brush when you don't go out of the lines. Although this brush can also work very nicely for detail lines if you do want to use it. You just got to be very slow with your process of applying the paint. Now you can do this with any paint that you've got. It doesn't have to be watercolors, it doesn't have to be inks. You can use anything you want to. Even if you want to use color pencil, you could do so. I'm using watercolors just because it's one of my favorite mediums to use, and it's also a very forgiving medium, because if you do make a mistake, you can just reactivate it and then paint over the area once it's dry again. Like say you use the wrong color and you want the color to be maybe a different pink or something like that, you can just lift off the excess with a damp brush while it's still wet. You can also reactivate it, and then like you can see there, I went over the center. I just removed it just by using my finger. So we are going to add other layers to this. This is not the final layer. This is only the layer for the base. It will show mostly, this layer is going to show through, but we are going to be adding some darker colors of pink or darker shades of pink to this flower. That's why I'm not too worried if it's a bit light. Now if you do go darker on certain areas, not a problem. Just try to spread that color out for the rest of the flower, and even if you want to, just try to lift up that excess that you've got with a damp brush. So you don't have to repaint that area, just remove some of that excess color with your brush. You can see I'm just lifting up these little we've got one more flower, and then we can start working on the leaves. The reason why I'm going to be working on the leaves is to allow these flowers some time to dry before we go in with the next layers, because we don't want the flowers to be too wet through when we start working on the leaves, because some of the leaves are beside the flowers, so you can get some of the paint bleeding into the areas of the leaves where we don't want it to go into. You can see I'm going very, very slowly and adding my colors. And that's the thing with art, you don't try to rush your art or try to go too fast or anything like that. Try to take your time and just go slowly and apply your color, because if you do rush, you're going to tend to make a lot of mistakes, or you may end up using colors you didn't want to use. So I would highly recommend taking your time with a piece like this. Okay, so while those are drying, I'm going to start working on the leaves on top. Now I'm using a very sort of a sap green color. Is kind of like a sap green. I'm using that color for it. We are going to go in afterwards and add darker shading to that color, so you can see it's a bit of a sap green. Now I'm going to be using that just to paint in the base colors for these leaves. Now I've seen a lot of people say that watercolors is a very difficult medium, and I honestly, personally, in my opinion, I think it's one of the more forgiving mediums, because unlike maybe say for instance ink, if you're using ink tents or an ink um, paint that you're using, you're going to have some of that go permanent, or not some of it, it's going to be permanent, and that means your painting is going to be, you know, you're going to have those colors on and you're not going to be able to remove them. So there are some mediums that are forgiving, like I would say watercolors, and then there's some that are a bit more on the permanent side. So you just need to be patient and take your time, enjoy the process. I always say that in a lot of my videos, enjoy the process of your painting. Don't worry about the final result and stress about that. Just have fun with it, because the journey is the most important. When you're done with your illustration and drawing, then you can look at it and be proud that you completed it and be happy with it, or not if it didn't turn out the way you want to, but then you learn from it. But try to enjoy the process of creating. Like, just enjoy the feel of, like now I'm painting, the feel of the brush and paint on the paper, the way the colors move on the paper. Okay, while that is drying, I'm going to now go in with some yellow, just to get these centers of flowers colored in. Okay, now is when we're going to start to think of how we are going to paint in the shaded areas or shadow areas. So I'm going to be using a little darker pink, so it's a shade darker than this pink, just for some shadows here and there. We'll come back to the leaves, but I'm not adding a lot of shadows, maybe just to these lines in the center, because that's at this piece. I think we should add one more leaf over here. It's looking a bit too bare, and I think one more leaf will really bring this piece together. So I'm going to go back in with our initial green color that we were using. I'm just add that in. So you see, with painting, it never finishes and it never is done. Sometimes while you'll be painting a particular thing, it looked fine, but when you get to its getting completion, or to its completion, you will realize that, you know what, I think it's missing this or it's missing that. That's why it's so important that after you finish your painting, step away from it, look at it from afar, or step away for a while, like a couple of hours or a day or so, or overnight, and then in the morning or the next day go back to it and have a look at it and see if there's anything you would want to change in it or add to it, or if anything looks off or it look better with a certain addition. I'm just going to add a little bit of some white highlights here and there. Now this step is completely optional, it's just my personal preference. I usually like adding little accents of white. Artworks, I'm sure you can constantly work on it all the time, but I think I'm going to say this one is done. And there is the completed painting or illustration done using only fine liner, one fine liner, a 0.05, and using some watercolors, and then just adding some highlights with the white jelly roll pen. So there we have the completed illustration. So I hope you found this video helpful and enjoyable, and you enjoy the process of me creating this design. This design may become a sticker, or I may even use it for a notepad. I'm currently working on designing some stickers and notepads. So I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful and interesting. If you have, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. And you can feel free to leave your comments down below. Share it with anybody that would like to see this video, or you think would like to see this video. And if you would like to see other art videos and any other art inspirational videos I put up on my channel, then you can consider subscribing. Till the next one. Bye.